Yesterday, a report warned that third-party organisations are being brought in by schools to teach young pupils anti-racism theories. The organisation Don't Divide Us investigated 49 third-party organisations that provide courses to children as young as 8 that aim to decolonise their minds. One of the organisations even advocates teaching early years children, which is the period of birth to the age of 5 years old, about racism. The most insidious part of it all is that children are being tasked to take part in tests that check their knowledge of terms like white privilege. One of the organisations, Flair, asked the children to list how well they understood the term in an attempt to apprehend how unconsciously biased the students were. Pupils were also asked to answer how they would approach a situation where a teacher mispronounced a Middle Eastern student's name. Would they, 1, report it to a member of staff, 2, publicly correct the teacher, 3, ask the student how they feel, 4, speak to the teacher about their mispronunciation, 5, do nothing as it's only a mispronunciation. I'm not sure it's a good idea to teach children to correct their teachers in the middle of a class, that surely you need some element of discipline in a class, and setting up confrontation seems unlikely to be the right thing to do, except in the most exceptional circumstances. Don't Divide Us found in its investigation that of the 49 organisations, only one provider does not promote critical race theory as being fact in its teaching, despite the fact that critical race theory has been debunked. As Kemi Badenoch said in the past, CRT defines blackness as victimhood and whiteness as oppression, and this is wrong and paints a very bleak and inaccurate picture of social and economic mobility in this country. The report quite rightly flagged that the Education Act requires teachers to make sure that the promotion of partisan views is prohibited. Last year, the government warned schools that where controversial political views are expressed in the classroom, a teacher must offer a balanced overview of opposing viewpoints. A bit like a news channel, really, which is exactly what we're trying to do. And with me now, I'm delighted to be joined by Ken Hinds, who believes that children should be aware of their racial privileges. Ken, thank you so much for coming in. Obviously, everyone wants schools to be a place where people are treated equally. But isn't the difficulty with teaching theories and promoting theories that are contentious and aren't proved, and in some cases have been shown to be wrong?
I don't know about theories. I know about, for example, my lived experience of going through school. I remember being 14 and it came to pick my subject of what I want to do. And when I told them I want to be an astronaut, I was told by my careers teacher, don't be silly. That's something way beyond you. I said, well, what should I be doing? You more like be a painter or decorator or plumber. So my thing is simply this. Being on the receiving end.
That happened in my own constituency, in a college there that had a terrible Ofsted report a few years ago, where pupils were told not to have ambition. This is a terrible thing, but it's not a race thing, because the people in my constituency were poor but white. And I couldn't agree with you more, that telling pupils not to have ambition is disgraceful. And you want to encourage ambition, but it's not a race issue.
Well, I think that also partly plays. You've got two types. You've got class issues and you've got race issues, and with the underclass. I'm sorry, but, you know, I don't think you've ever experienced that, or from your privileged background, from what I can tell. And my thing is just simply this, you know, when you're on the receiving end, it's a different thing. It's soul-destroying. And my thing is that if race is an element, and it has been shown to be an element, not just in schools, but just through society on the whole, come on, we want to wake up and smell the coffee.
OK, I think the interesting thing here is the Sewell report, which found in terms of differentials in pay, that though there are differentials in pay by race, actually they were lower in the 1970s, when the UK was ostensibly a more racially divided society, and that therefore these things can't be taken that simplistically.
I don't know about differential in pay. I know in differential in privilege and opportunities. I know this, you know, and it still is. If, like, for example, if you look at the Premiership, we've got so many black players, but very few that makes it to coaches or makes it into the boardroom. How could that be possible? And when we look across the level of society and we see that's reflecting wherever we go, like, for example, even with the police. I'm a community facilitator at Hendon Academy, and I'm talking to the young police officers, the new recruits. And what's happened is many of them have come from backgrounds where they've got no association with the black community. So it's not surprising that when we see these videos that go viral about bad police interaction, what am I supposed to say?
But being in favour of a society that is not racist is not a controversial view. It's a question of whether these theories that are being taught are the right thing, and particularly with critical race theory, which obviously emanates from the United States. What was that trying to do? I think this is important. The founder of it, Richard Delgado, said that critical race theory questions the very foundations of the liberal order, including equality theory, legal reasoning, Enlightenment rationalism, and neutral principles of constitutional law. The desire for deconstruction rests on the claim for America that America is fundamentally based upon white supremacy. But this isn't actually true, is it? Because you see in America that people of Asian background have done enormously successfully and are consistently now outperforming people from a white background.
Well, and again, I won't be. That's not too similar to what happens probably here. But the simple fact is that what we found when you, particularly in the black community and in the black race, since we were subjected to such disproportionate violence, that it doesn't surprise me that we are much more traumatized by.
But in America. This is also true of the Asian community, particularly the Chinese and the Japanese were actually interned during the Second World War. So it's not the case that the Asian community was enormously well treated historically, but it is now able to outperform on a meritocratic basis. And isn't that where society should be?
Let me say this much. The Second World War lasted, approximately 6 years? Slavery lasted over 400 years. So how can you try to have a balance to say that this is what it is?
To this country, not in this country, because post the Mansfield judgment, it was clear that there was no concept of slavery in England, and from the middle of the 18th century.
I think you're very much mistaken, because if we look at what they did in the Caribbean and how it still afflicts not only the Caribbean but also Africa, the legacy still continues.
We were the first country in the world to outlaw slavery.
Maybe so, but I won't be surprised. Your family has got connection through slavery.
Well, I'd be very surprised. You have no evidence of this.
Well, I'm saying, I won't be surprised. But then again, I might do a bit of deep delving just to
well,
confirm or
as far as
deny.
I'm aware, my family has no connection with the slave trade. But that the UK's record on slavery was that we were the first country in the world that slavery was an aspect of the Ottoman Empire right until its very end.
I think no, but I tell you what I can blame the British for: industrialising slavery. This is what my thing is.
And we didn't. I don't know. Portuguese traded more people than we did. Souls were traded more by the Portuguese than by us. I'm afraid we're going to have to end, unfortunately. But Ken, thank you so much. We'll have to cut back in and continue this conversation